Well, the battleground state of North Carolina is in a more intense election battleground this year with the rare prize of this open U.S. Senate seat up for grabs.
Yeah, Republican Richard Burr is retiring after 3 terms in the Senate, and Congressman Ted Budd hopes the endorsement he received from former President Donald Trump may be enough to put him over the top in the GOP primary. He recently sat down with our senior political reporter Bob Buckley to talk about the big issues.
What should be done with the people who rioted on January 6th?
I think we need to have justice everywhere. If it's burning downtown Raleigh or Charlotte.
Was there something a little more egregious, though, about attacking our Capitol building?
I mean, it was all eyes were on the Capitol on that day. And if somebody broke the law there, they need to be punished for it. But of course, they need to have their due process.
What culpability or what responsibility does former President Trump deserve in all this?
Look, I mean, I think he has every right to be tremendously concerned about how things happened in 2020. And I think he needs to highlight those. And people are very aggrieved that the Constitution was violated. Look, I think when you look at the timeline, you can't blame him.
I think where people have a problem with former President Trump is that there was a chance to put a stop to it, to come out and say, no more of this. And he didn't do that. Is that something that he should be called on?
I think the timeline's pretty clear. No one that I know of would ever want violent rioting at the Capitol. I think it was a bad day for all Americans, and I think regardless of where you are politically.
Did Joe Biden win the 2020 election in your view?
I have grave constitutional concerns about how things happened. You know that I was an objector to the election results, or the electoral votes from Pennsylvania and Arizona, I believe. So I've got grave concerns about how things happen. Now, he is the president, but I have concerns about the electoral votes and how things. People other than those constitutionally permitted were making changes to election laws, and particularly in this case in Pennsylvania. Only the state legislatures, for them Harrisonburg, for us it's Raleigh, are allowed to make changes. But you had judges, you had governors, you had boards of elections, local officials making changes that were not constitutional.
And then, of course, there's this.
The average price for gas in North Carolina is $4 a gallon now, and there's no end in sight.
Gas is among the most visible examples of inflation that Budd says comes from too much government spending authorized by Congress over the past 2 years fighting the pandemic.
Early COVID, we didn't know what we had, so we definitely wanted to support medical research. We wanted to support the economy. But when it came to these later packages, it's too much money that was incentivizing people to stay home and not produce. You've got so much money chasing goods that aren't there because people aren't producing, and that's a recipe for inflation.
So as a senator, what do you do?
You have to have every incentive for people to work. Work's good. You need to have people engaged in meaningful work. And then when you have supply, the price goes down. It's simple supply and demand economics.
What do we do with Russia and Ukraine?
We need to defend our allies. We need to make sure we give them what they need and realize they're not a NATO ally. Look, they have plenty of military, but they need the tools. They need lethal aid, and we need to provide what they need to be able to fight their own battle.
Budd says he hasn't studied fellow Republican Rick Scott's 11-point agenda, but generally agreed with some of its major points, including the wall at the southern border.
Said, yes, we need a wall, and it's part of the solution. So I definitely think we need to finish the wall, all 1,936 miles of it.
And to limiting himself to 2 terms in the Senate if he's elected.
I've been very consistent in supporting term limits.
Do you have a number on that?
There's several packages, but I think the one that I supported was 3 terms in the House, which is 6 years, plus 2 in the Senate.
Bob Buckley, Fox 8 News.
Another 12.
And you can see Bob's interviews with all the major candidates in this race on myfox8.com.